Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Football. Today we are reviewing a PPR mock draft after the NFL draft. We'll see where the rookies went. We'll see what other kind of shakeup there was. It's going to be a fun, spirited show today. Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg and Chris Towers. Chris thinks that Jamie took TJ Hawkinson too early. I think that Chris took Michael Thomas too early. Nobody has any beef with any of my picks. I did a terrific job. And more importantly, it's Shraggy B's birthday. So everybody wish Ben Schrager a happy birthday on Twitter or whatever, with the Facebook group. Maybe we can get a post just about Shraggy B. That would be great. Happy birthday, Ben. How old are you? I think I know, but go ahead.
I am 21. I'm drinking some whiskey right now.
You're not 21, but you're not far from 21.
I'm 24. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it.
That is what I thought.
I remember when I was 24. Happy birthday.
I don't remember when
life seems so full of possibilities.
24.
It is.
And now we're here.
I was living it up in New York City. No pain.
Yeah, I'm living it up in Houston. Same thing. Yeah.
What are you gonna do for your birthday?
Some barbecue tonight. Some brisket. Some sausage. Celebrate Heath style.
Excellent.
Can't go wrong with barbecue.
Excellent, man. All right, good stuff. We'll hear from Ben later on in the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today, Ben puts up some awesome graphics during the show. So he'll actually be able to show the draft, and I'm going to put a link in the episode description to the draft in the podcast. So if you're just listening to the podcast, you want to click the link, I'll put a link to the draft in the episode description. Let's go through some news items real quick here. And Jamie, some offensive line news with Charles Leno going to Washington, Bobby Massey going to Denver. Anything significant here?
I mean, Leno's a good signing by the Washington football team, just adding to what should be a strength for them. I just love Washington's roster. If Ryan Fitzpatrick is anything close to what he was with the Dolphins, they're going to be a tough team to beat because that defense is going to be nasty. Skill players are in really good shape, at least their starters. And the line is starting to look better. And then in terms of Massey, obviously, what happened to the Broncos, losing Juwan James. So they're just trying to add depth to their offensive line. And, their line played pretty well last year without Juwan James. So, adding somebody like Massey will certainly help their depth at the right tackle spot.
You think Washington's going to win the division again?
It's going to be tough, because obviously a healthy Dallas offense, and I think the improvements that they made defensively, they're going to be tough to beat. If Daniel Jones is any good, the Giants are going to be tough to beat. I think Philly's got probably the longest shot, to be honest with you. But if Jalen Hurts is good, they're going to be tough to beat. So it's going to be a competitive division again, but I would give the edge to Washington just based on their roster. Again, it comes down to Fitzpatrick. If Fitzpatrick is not a train wreck, which we know he's been at times, then they're going to be the best team in that division.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is Ryan Fitzpatrick's never played poorly when people have high expectations for him.
Yeah, he's going to be an upgrade for them. He's also a little turnover prone, but they had the third, according to Pro Football Focus, Washington had the third best pass blocking line in the NFL last year, 10th best run blocking. Charles Leno was good in run blocking last year. He was the 61st best tackle in pass blocking, so that's not so good. Those are just PFF grades, but that's where they stand. Chase Edmonds, Dave sent me an article about Chase Edmonds gearing up for more work this year, said he wanted to make some improvements in the passing game. So he's hoping to be even better as a pass catcher. Green Bay is signing Blake Bortles. That doesn't mean that they're trading Aaron Rodgers. They just need some quarterback depth. And Penei Sewell, Detroit's first-round pick, top 10 pick, number 1 tackle in the draft. He will miss rookie camp after testing positive for COVID. We are going to be live on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern to answer all of your questions with the schedule out, with the NFL draft behind us, with dynasty drafts underway. It's going to be me, Dave, and Heath Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
And Chris, actually.
Oh. Did you know that, Chris?
Sorry, Adam.
It's not my fault. I was throwing the birthday boy under the bus here. I did not know that, and it's blame Ben.
Actually, blame me because Heath got Tuesday off, and I didn't realize. So it's Dave and Chris.
Me, Dave, and Chris.
Wow, yeah. I'm really sorry, Adam.
What a mess, bro. What a mess. YouTube.com/fantasyfootball today. Get your questions answered. So what you want to do is subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on so you know exactly when we're live, and we will see you at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Is that right, Ben? 7 p.m. on Tuesday? Did that change?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. Introductory questions for our mock draft. What was the best pick of the draft? Chris, you looked at the whole draft, you studied it, you memorized it. What was the best pick?
I think I like some of the like mid-round areas. I really like Kyle Pitts at what is that, 69th overall, and Curtis Samuel at 70th overall. I like those two picks quite a bit.
Interesting. Well, you're wrong because the best pick of the draft was Jamie's third pick, obviously. Najee Harris going 30.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. I missed that one. Yeah. That I have him as a top 15 player. So
yeah. For those of you, if you're looking at this draft, just don't expect to get Najee Harris where he went. But okay, Jamie, let's talk about Chris's other answers. Kyle Pitts, 69th. Curtis Samuel, I think it's 70th for Pitts and 71st for Samuel. 10th and 11th in round 6. Chris loved those picks. Did you?
I definitely like Curtis Samuel. I think Curtis Samuel was a good pick. I think it was Jacob Gibbs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That drafted him. I'll check.
Yep.
Where is it?
It was.
Yeah. Jacob does a good job. So that was a good value pick by him. I mean, Pitts is a wild card. Obviously, if he's going to be, the exception to what most rookie tight ends are, then it could be a steal in that spot. I like Dallas Goedert better, just with the expectation that Zach Ertz is going to go and Goddard went after Pitts. So in terms of, just the tight end that I would prefer Goddard and Pitts to probably be flipped since Goddard went round 7. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to gamble on Pitts and certainly take the opportunity to try and be aggressive in drafting him, I just wonder if, I don't know what Jacob had a tight end or not, just looking at the draft board, because the only reason I say that is I know Heath had a tight end at that point. Heath was the first pick in round 7 and went after, so it went Will Brinson at with the 10th pick in the 6th round, which is where Pitts went. And then it was Jacob, Heath, Jacob, Will. I wonder if Will could have played that a little better and maybe gotten Pitts in that spot.
Oh, you mean Jacob could have played that better?
No, Will.
Will should have taken Pitts. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jacob waited to get Irv Smith late.
Okay, so then he couldn't have done it.
So, yeah. Chris, what do you like about Curtis Samuel there? And should he have gone ahead of the player who went right after him, Brandon Cooks?
I think given the questions around Deshaun Watson's status and how bad that passing game is likely to be if Deshaun Watson's not there, I do think Curtis Samuel's a better pick than Brandon Cooks. I do have Brandon Cooks currently projected for better numbers, and if Deshaun Watson does play a full season, I think Brandon Cooks will be better. I would have him as a top 20 wide receiver. I don't expect Deshaun Watson to play the whole season, certainly, and beyond that, I'm not sure. So I think Curtis Samuel is a better pick there. I'm working under the assumption that Washington is going to involve him in the running game the way Carolina did, just because he's such a uniquely skilled player. Why wouldn't they? And I think he could be a very good fit playing with Fitzpatrick because he has shown the ability to be a downfield receiver. He's shown the ability to make plays in the short passing game. I think there's a chance he just takes a really big step forward.
All right, Jamie, what was the best pick in the draft other than Najee Harris?
Just looking at the next round, I guess just to tie in Curtis Samuel, I would have probably taken Tyler Boyd over Curtis Samuel, who went in round 7, just with what his role is in Cincinnati's offense, and they're probably going to throw the ball a little bit more. So I like Tyler Boyd in round 7. I like Dallas Goedert in round 7 as well. Noah Fant in round 8, Jerry Jeudy in round 8. I actually was considering Jerry Jeudy where I took Jalen Waddle, but I already taken Cortland Sutton. And so unless you tell me Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Broncos, I'm not taking 2 Broncos receivers as starters. As of now, I do love the upside of Jeudy, and I think Sutton's going to be back. But the way that I built my team, I couldn't afford to take both Broncos guys. So Jerry Jeudy in round 8, I think, was a good pick as well.
All right, guys. How about the worst picks? Chris, what was the worst pick of this draft?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I really hated a lot of my picks. Picking from the 12th spot this year, maybe I'll warm to it eventually, but I took Myles Gaskin's 36th overall. Really not happy with that. I took T.Y. Hilton at the start of the 8th round. Was not thrilled with that. And I think Gaskin was probably just because I forced myself to take a running back. I panicked. I wanted Chris Carson there. Once he was gone, I felt like there was a drop off, and I probably shouldn't have taken another running back. Probably should have just gone with 2 wide receivers, and I think that really set me back. But I also, I said I like the Kyle Pitts pick. Part of why I like that is because he went a full round after TJ Hawkinson. I don't love, generally speaking, I think like kind of the second tier of tight ends when they start getting pushed up historically tend to be not great values. And I'm worried that's what's going to happen with Hawkinson there.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That middle tier of tight ends is pretty bust heavy. It seems consistently, but I look for Hawkinson around 60th overall. I keep having these late picks in round 1. So with my 5-6 turn, I'm always looking for Hawkinson. Jamie took him. So this was Jamie's pick, and Chris didn't really like it that much. He thought Jamie went a little early on Hawkinson.
I mean, look, I criticized my own picks too.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's no picking out anyone here.
I probably would have taken Hawkinson.
I knew you would have.
Yeah, 2 picks later.
Right.
So Jamie actually had the 9th pick. I thought it was a little earlier. Sorry. So 9th pick of round 5. I had the 11th pick, and I would have considered him for sure. So yeah. All right, Jamie, what do you think about that trend of this being a pretty bad spot for tight ends in recent years? And does that scare you on Hawkinson?
It doesn't, and I think you look at what his, first 2 seasons have been, and really year 2 and what he showed you last year, what the offense looks like for Detroit. I think we've talked about this enough that this receiving core is going to be terrible. And so, you have a offense coordinator in Anthony Lynn that has shown the ability to lean on his tight ends. You have a quarterback in Jared Goff that at times has leaned on his tight ends. And I just look at what the trend has been for what these breakout tight ends have shown you. And it's guys that have the opportunity to lead their team in targets. And I think Hawkins is going to be that guy. I think he's going to be the next breakout tight end. As I've said before, when we did our tight end preview show, I think he's the 4th best tight end this season in fantasy and PPR. So I take him over Mark Andrews. And so, if you want to, look at what the tight end position is, if you can get a guy that has a chance to be a difference maker, and I think Hawkins is going to be a difference maker, don't pass that up. So could he be Evan Ingram and OJ Howard and those guys from the last couple of seasons? Sure. But I think he's better than that. I think he's in a better situation than those guys were.
All right. What about worst pick in your mind, Jamie? Worst pick of this draft?
Worst pick? I guess. So I don't know if it's worst pick. I think so. Just to go back to Chris's team, if you're going to, I think, commit to tight end, which Chris has said many times that he's going to do, I think if you're going to do that, knowing how deep receiver is, taking Michael Thomas and George Kittle is probably a bad route to go. Like, I think you want to get yourself one running back in that spot. So you could have had Chubb or Mixon or Najee Harris or Akers or, whichever guy you like that went in round 2. And I think that kind of sets you up in a better spot, because where you took Gaskin, for example, who I think ended up being your first running back, you could have gone with Robert Woods and Amari Cooper or Chris Godwin or Mike Evans or one of those guys. And I think that's just a better build than, as good as Michael Thomas can be. I just think the roster construction could have been a little better. So I don't know if it's the worst pick, but maybe just the strategy wasn't exactly perfect.
Yeah, my preference is probably running back tight end to start the draft, at least in that. I think running back tight end running back is also viable. And so, yeah, I'm a little, like I said, I don't like picking 12th. It forces you into some situations that you don't necessarily love to be in. And in retrospect, I think Mixon probably would have been a better pick than Michael Thomas. I'm very high on Michael Thomas. He's my number 2 wide receiver. And yeah, Mixon and Kittle probably would have been a little bit of a better option. I do want one of the big 3 tight ends, especially if I'm picking in the second half of the first round. But yeah, I think getting one of the high-end running backs because wide receiver is so deep, I think that's probably the better way to go, because what you don't want to be doing later on in the early rounds in the 3rd, 4th, 5th range is reaching for a starting running back just because you need a starting running back.
Yeah, that's a good lesson.
But I also think Myles Gaskin could be really good. So, if he is my number 1 running back, it's not ideal, but it could work out based on the usage we saw last season.
Well,
yeah, but they're also, the Kerryon Johnson claim could be a little troubling. Not because of the player, but because of they don't seem to be done. And, whatever that means, whether it's a stupid veteran move that they're going to do, a Todd Gurley or a Le'Veon Bell or something along those lines, which they could obviously do and just see what those guys have left in the tank. Or who knows, with what, any trades that may come down. Because I think we're going to see a little bit more movement than we typically see post June 1. So whether it's guys getting cut or guys potentially being traded, a la Aaron Rodgers, but, the Zach Ertzes of the world, Jamison Crowder, some names that and some names that you may not be expecting. There could be some moves coming, and I think Miami's going to be aggressive in their running back position.
Honestly, as someone who drafted Myles Gaskin, I kind of wish it had been Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah, great point.
Well, yeah, they put in a claim apparently, or they were going to claim him, but the Eagles had a higher priority. So that's what these guys are talking about here. But I want to ask you about Michael Thomas being your number 2 wide receiver. Devontae Adams, if we had done this draft before these Aaron Rodgers rumors heated up, he wouldn't have gone 11th. I've now taken him 11th 2 weeks in a row in 2 separate drafts. It's a 3 wide receiver full PPR league that we're talking about here. So I took Adams as the first wide receiver off the board. The first 10 picks were 9 running backs, and Travis Kelce went 8th. You took Michael Thomas as wide receiver 2, 12th overall. Then you took Kittle. But then Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins, they all went in the second round. Why Michael Thomas second in PPR? And then I'll ask Jamie where he has him.
I think Michael Thomas, first of all, I think Michael Thomas with Jameis Winston might have as much upside as he's ever had, because I think that's going to be, a similar offense in terms of how often they throw to the 2019 offense. But I think Jameis Winston, I don't know if he's a better passer than Drew Brees was at that point. I think he's better for fantasy. His willingness to take shots is going to help Michael Thomas put up more big plays and score more touchdowns, which has been an issue for him historically relative to the other elite wide receivers. But given the complete lack of other options in that passing game, I think Michael Thomas is still going to be, in that Devontae Adams area in terms of target share. I think he's going to get, close to 10 targets per game. We saw that even with Taysom Hill in the 4 games he started. Michael Thomas, his pace in those 4 games would have been wide receiver 15, which is not great. But that was with him scoring 0 touchdowns. If you gave him just that 16-game pace with 6 touchdowns, which would be a really low number for 150 target season, he would have been wide receiver 4. And so I just think there is a high floor, a very high ceiling with Michael Thomas. I think it's being a little underplayed, the fact that he came back from the high ankle sprain, obviously wasn't 100% because he had to go back on IR after 5 or 6 games. I just think he's really good. I think he's in as good of a situation as basically anybody in the league.
And Jamie, where do you have Michael Thomas in PPR?
I think I have him 6 or 7. He's in that conversation to be the best receiver again. I don't think anything Chris said is inaccurate. And it's funny because, if you look at his numbers the last 2 seasons without Breeze, he was fantastic with Teddy Bridgewater 2 years ago when he was healthy, 100%. And then he was still very successful, as Chris alluded to, with Taysom Hill. It's going to be interesting to see what the philosophy is. It's going to be interesting to see who the quarterback is. We could sit here and say Jameis is going to be good for him, but I think a big reason why Thomas was also so successful was because Breeze is so accurate. Jameis is obviously not that type of quarterback, so there may be some more plays downfield, but there may be less catchable balls, so it could be a little frustrating. And then you never know how this offense is going to operate if it is Taysom Hill and all the, creativity that a full offseason of Sean Payton using that caliber of quarterback and what things will look like. So, Thomas is still worth taking in the first 2 rounds. I wouldn't take him in the first round, but I do think if you are apt to take a receiver in the second round, he's going to go there. I've now done multiple drafts with other analysts. He ends up going in the 3rd round. And that's PPR, just because running backs get pushed up and people take the 3 tight ends. So, if you end up getting him in round 3, I think that's actually a very good, it's an incredible player to get just based on what he's shown you over the start of his career.
All right, I'm just going to run through some of these rounds here, and let's just take a look. And we'll of course talk about where the rookies went. But round 1, McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Barkley, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor. That's your top 6. McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Barkley, Henry, Jonathan Taylor. Ezekiel Elliott, 7 running backs, then Travis Kelce, Austin Eckler to Jamie, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams to me, and Michael Thomas to Chris. So 7 running backs, then Kelce, then 2 more running backs, Eckler and Aaron Jones, then Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas. That's round 1. Round 2, we're going to see the other 2 tight ends come off the board, beginning with Kittle, 13th overall, then Tyreek Hill to me. So Chris started with Michael Thomas and Kittle. I started with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. A.J. Brown, Nick Chubb to Jamie. So he started with Eckler and Chubb. This is a 3-receiver PPR league. He actually started with 3 running backs. I already alluded to Najee Harris. Ridiculous. In round 3. Dan Schneier took Joe Mixon after Jamie took Chubb. So Kittle, Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs. That's the first 6 picks of round 2. That's followed by Cam Akers, Justin Jefferson, Darren Waller, DeAndre Hopkins. Pretty normal, pretty standard stuff, at least for us. And then you get some decisions to make at this point. DeAndre Swift, 11th pick of round 2. Miles Sanders, 12th pick of round 2. So those guys went ahead of DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen, all the quarterbacks. Can't really, I mean, I would have taken Najee Harris certainly ahead of Swift, ahead of Sanders, and I would take him ahead of Swift. I know people really love Swift's potential to catch 60, 70 passes this year. Get it. I get it. But yeah, I don't know, Jamie, when you look at round 2, what stands out?
A lot of great players. I think, like you said, Najee Harris belongs in this group. It just depends on how you value these wide receivers. I think that, just based on how deep the position is, round 3 is probably the spot I would look for a lot of these guys, as much as I love Justin Jefferson and Hopkins and even Diggs, even A.J. Brown. I just think that if you have an opportunity to get one of these difference makers at the running back position, knowing how quickly the position falls off and how deep wide receiver is, that's the route I'm going to go this year. And so I may miss out on some of the high-end talent at wide receiver, but for me, I just think getting one of those running backs is going to be a little bit, of a difference for your roster. So it's probably personal preference. But I mean, look, these are all stars. That's the reason they go in the first 2 rounds. You can make a case that Miles Sanders shouldn't be a round 2 pick at this point, but
yeah,
everybody else for the most part belongs there.
Yeah, but okay, so what's the cutoff at running back for you where you're, Joe Mixon, right? I mean, I'm pretty excited about Joe Mixon, but I was, it's fairly excited about him last year. I thought he was super safe. He really stunk. And he had one huge game and he kind of stunk after that. So would you take Joe Mixon over Stephon Diggs? Because that's what happened. It went, you took Chubb and then Mixon and then Diggs went. Stephon Diggs led
I would personally, just because, again, I think if you get what he can become, then that's better what Diggs is, just based on the standpoint of what you may be getting at wide receiver. Just again, you have to extend it a little bit further than just the round 2 guys, because once you get into rounds 4, 5, and 6, those are still very good wide receivers. They don't have the ceiling that those other guys have shown you, and I get that. They're not going to be A.J. Brown or Stephon Diggs or those other guys. But when you start to talk about, Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and DJ Moore and Adam Thielen and CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Lockett, if you pair those guys with what those running backs can become, then I think you're in better shape. Now, again, those running backs have to become that. That's the gamble you're taking.
But look at the running backs in that round. I mean, the running backs in that round are Dobbins, Jacobs, Travis Etienne, David Montgomery. So would you rather have Joe Mixon and Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs and Travis Etienne?
I'd rather have Joe Mixon and Amari Cooper. I mean, and that's essentially what I did. I took Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper. So for me, that's just, I think, a better way to go. Like, a lot of my drafts so far have been, I throw my first, 3 or 4 picks at running back, and then I just go crazy at wide receiver. And so probably the more normal route is to go the other way and take one running back and then, go heavy wide receiver in your first 3 or 4 picks, and then throw a lot of capital at running back. And that certainly has worked, and it's worked for me as well. I just look at what these workhorse running backs have the potential to do if they hit. And we know the success rate is not that great, but it's just a matter of the way I see how deep wide receiver is. That's just the build I've been typically doing so far.
One thing I'm really interested to see this season is what the longer schedule and the wider amount of time between bye weeks is going to do for running backs. We've got bye weeks starting in week 6, I believe, this year, and going through week 14, which not super helpful from the NFL for fantasy playoff purposes if you wanted to add a week to your fantasy playoffs or something like that. But, so we're going to have 4 teams. I think it's the Dolphins, Colts, Patriots, and Eagles who play 13 games in a row to start the season. So if, one of those running backs, if Jonathan Taylor gets a nagging ankle injury in week 4, he's not going to have an opportunity to rest it for a long time. I'm very interested to see what that does to these expected workhorse running backs, because I do think this year, more than any year I can remember, there are more running backs that I expect to have both a heavy passing game usage and the lead running back role. I think you can probably go 21 deep at least before you start running out of guys who I feel confident will have a very productive role in their offense. So I think that's like the Diggs ETN side probably has more upside than Mixon and Cooper, just because if ETN does become that guy, I think he's got huge upside. But I think I agree with Jamie that I'd rather have the Mixon and whoever the 16th best wide receiver would be, or whatever you're talking about there, whoever your preference is.
Yeah, I just don't know that I could go 3 running backs. Jamie, you're doing that a lot. And look, if Najee Harris was my 3rd round pick, I would absolutely do it. But if Clyde Edwards-Helaire were my 3rd round pick, I could get on board with that.
I'll tell you how it played out for me, because I don't necessarily intend to do it, because I just think we're going to see more running backs get pushed up. It's just kind of the way that's fallen to me, where one of my top 15 guys has kind of landed in my lap every time. And I'll just, give you another example of this. I just did a magazine draft recently with a bunch of other analysts. My first 2 picks were almost identical. I went Austin Eckler and Joe Mixon in that draft. I went Eckler and Chubb in this draft. In the 3rd round, I was thinking, okay, let's see who's going to fall to me, because typically the guys that are in that range are Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Antonio Gibson. I've taken a lot of those 2 guys, for example, because they fall to round 3. They were gone. My 3rd round pick was in that draft? Michael Thomas. That's much better than taking the 3rd running back there. Yeah. I started that team: Eckler, Mixon, Thomas, Julio Jones. There's no flaw. There's no flaw.
Great.
There's gonna be a problem. I certainly foresee a problem, because Eckler didn't stay healthy last year. Mixon didn't stay healthy last year. So one of those guys is probably going to be a disappointment. But to go that route is certainly safer. I just look at it because I know the way that it's fallen, that if you tell me that I can get Amari Cooper in round 4, I have no problem going with 3 running backs to start, even in a 3 receiver league. Now, the difference for me in this draft is taking Hawkinson, because that's not something that I've done a lot. So,
okay, that was my question. Do you end up, you have Tom Brady in this league as well. Do you find yourself out on the top 7 or whatever quarterbacks, the mobile guys? What do you end up doing at quarterback?
I mean, Adam, we've done this show enough to know that you could ask me this question in 2021 or 2014, and I would give you the same answer. I don't care. So I'm not being aggressive with the top 7 quarterbacks for the most part. So if one falls to me, I will certainly take it. But I don't see much of a difference in trying to get Russell Wilson in round 6 or 7 as opposed to Tom Brady in round 11 or 12. As opposed, the difference, I guess, would be is that I'll take the 4 players in between that I can get.
And that is a big difference for me, because Chris and I had the same quarterback strategy in this draft, which was he took Kyler Murray 60th overall, which pissed me off, because I was like, do I take Kyler Murray 59th? And now I'm going to wait. I'm going to get him on my next pick. And then whatever, Chris took him. So I took Lamar Jackson, with my next pick, 62nd overall. So we both were targeting quarterback there and took a quarterback there. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want to do that, and if you're Jamie, you can take Cortland Sutton, and you can take T.J. Hawkinson in that range. Juju Smith-Schuster went in that range. Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith. These are guys that you can, but I miss out usually because I'm looking at tight end and quarterback really there.
I will say, I regret it. I regret going Kyler Murray there. As good as I think he is, Russell Wilson. Well, I took him at the end of the 5th round. Russell Wilson went at the end of the 8th round. Jalen Hurts went at the beginning of the 11th round. I would rather have had either of those guys, Hurts at the beginning of the 11th or beginning of the 10th, or Russell Wilson at the beginning of the 8th. I would rather have had either of those guys. And that was something that I kept going to every time I would come up, is like, in my overall rank list, there would be one quarterback and then like 15 names crossed out before the next guy. And so obviously, like, Kyler Murray is going to be awesome, I think. But I think I would rather have waited on a quarterback there and taken Cortland Sutton at the end of the 5th round, or T. Higgins, or, someone like that.
And just to, obviously year over year changes, but Kyler Murray was 0.75 points per game better than Tom Brady last year. They finished back to back in terms of their total points.
Yeah, it's just, can Kyler Murray be the guy who was the first 8 games before the shoulder injury?
Oh, totally. I mean, obviously Kyler Murray's got a much higher ceiling, but if I'm just looking at the quarterbacks, the top 12 quarterbacks last year, the number 1 guy was not drafted as a top 10 guy in Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady was not drafted as a number 1 guy, or at the bottom end of that. He was, again, right behind Kyler Murray at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ryan Tannehill was 9. Justin Herbert was 10. So there's 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 that weren't drafted as top 10 guys. It happens all the time. So, to miss out on the top 7 guys going in, I'm okay with that.
Okay, but Jonathan Taylor was RB4, David Montgomery was RB6, James Robinson was RB8.
Totally, yeah, it's going to happen every position.
RB10, yeah. So you can keep going.
But it's also though the difference between Brady and, well, Lamar Jackson, I guess. That's a 1 point per game difference, and they're 5 spots apart in their total points.
Yeah, it's a pretty good case. It's a pretty good case, especially with the 3 that we talked about. I mean, Wilson and Brady and Hurts. I wouldn't even say especially. It's just a matter of who you like in that range. But Brady is so good. I don't think he's going to lose a lot of touchdowns to the running backs. I mean, their running game isn't going to be special. I really don't think it's, I know who they have, and these guys aren't special. So they're loaded, and he's Brady. And it's Bruce Arians. It's a really compelling case. It's a really compelling.
The 3 quarterbacks that I end up taking a lot of are Brady, Burrow, and Hurts. And they all have their cases for and against. One guy's going to be 44. One guy's coming off a torn ACL. One guy's got a 3-game sample size. But, you saw what all 3 of them can become. Obviously, Brady's doing it for a billion years. But, Hurts could be the first 4,000, 1,000 guy. And Burrow could lead the NFL in pass attempts, which will end up helping his points per game.
Or even, you look lower than that. Like Matt Ryan went in the 13th round.
Right.
I think he could have a similar season to what Brady did last year. I just think it's like, I want a difference maker at quarterback, but the price I paid, I think, Aaron Rodgers went in the 11th.
Well, he's not going to go that far if he's starting for the Packers. He's probably 2 rounds earlier.
But honestly, like, if he's
the Broncos,
if he gets traded anywhere, the Broncos might be an even better situation.
Yeah, very fair.
Okay, let me take a break here. When we come,
I guess I'd say once his situation is settled, he's going 2 rounds early.
When we come back, we will give you rounds 3 and 4. Take a look at how those unfolded. We'll tell you where the rookies went. We will get the fantasy cops back in action to go through your league disputes, and we will read your emails and your Apple Podcast questions. That's all coming up on Fantasy Football Today. We will be right back. And we are back. Welcome back, everybody. We have round 3. Remember, we got Fantasy Cops, we got Apple Podcast questions, we got emails coming up, so stay tuned. Round 3, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, Julio Jones going ahead of Calvin Ridley. That was interesting. But Allen, Metcalf, Julio, Patrick Mahomes, 4th pick of round 3, first quarterback off the board. Calvin Ridley, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Terry McLaurin, Najee Harris, hate you, Jamie, Allen Robinson, Chris Carson, and Myles Gaskin. Chris, quick thoughts on round 3?
Not really a bad pick in the bunch. There's a lot of good players out there. I think Julio over Calvin Ridley.
He's so hard. Yeah,
that one's harder.
Bad pick
to justify. But As much as like Julio struggled last year to stay healthy, but when he was on the field, he was a monster. I mean, if you take away, he averaged 85.6 yards per game, and that's without taking away the 2 or 3 games where he basically didn't play. So yeah, like I think he was on pace for 1,600 yards before the injuries last year. He was still a hugely impactful player. You saw how much worse Matt Ryan played without him last year. I still have him as a top 10 wide receiver. I just have him 9 points projected behind Calvin Ridley. So it's not a huge gap there.
I don't love the last 3 picks of this round. And 2 of those were ours, me and Chris. Allen Robinson, Chris Carson, Myles Gaskin. I don't really love them, Jamie.
Why?
Well, I felt like I had to take Carson. I really needed a running back. I went Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, which was just I didn't know that I was going to go receiver, but to take the top 2 receivers, arguably, it was too exciting to pass up. Carson, I don't know if he's who he is. If he is who he has been, you're talking about 3 straight seasons as a top 15 running back. Then that's a fine pick. But I don't love Gaskin there for the reasons we were talking about. I think Chris didn't love Gaskin there.
Adam, I would have been thrilled if you hadn't taken Chris Carson.
Yeah, that would have been your pick.
I think there's a drop off. I have Chris Carson ahead of Robinson, and I think there's kind of a drop off there.
Allen Robinson scares me because he's not great. First of all, I don't think he has top 5 upside, but he's very safe because he should get 150 to 160 targets. But the Justin Fields factor, I don't think is good for him, honestly. So
because he's going to run?
Because he's going to run more, because I think they threw 26 touchdowns last year. Even in 17 games, I don't think Justin Fields would be on pace for 26 touchdowns. So I just don't think, I think he's a round 4 pick.
Yep.
Who would I take ahead of him? That's a tough question at wide receiver, but that's a tough question. There's just a drop at wide receiver probably after Terry McLaurin. I just think after Terry McLaurin, after Najee Harris, it just felt like these picks, maybe they weren't bad, but maybe we're just approached a point in the draft where there's a tier.
Yeah, I think it's just there's a talent drop off there that you kind of can't do a lot about.
I mean, I think some of the picks in round 4 were still pretty good too. So
they were.
They're good.
Been in round 3, I wouldn't have liked them as much.
Yeah, but you know what though? I think knowing if you're going to get a receiver that's getting 150 targets, 150 plus targets, like Robinson's going to get, I think he's better than safe. I don't know if I'd put that label on him. I think he's still got upside to be. You're still getting a top 10 caliber receiver there. Maybe not top 5, but top 10.
Okay, and the hardest thing for me was the running backs, trying to decide between the running backs. When I took Carson, I did think he was number 1, but Gaskin. Let's look at the running backs that went in round 4. Dobbins, Jacobs, Etienne, and David Montgomery.
Yeah, and I think, just tying in Chris's team again, if you're going to go Kittle, Thomas, I think maybe you should lean in running back there again, as opposed to Robert Woods.
Oh, I get that, but I do have Robert Woods. Like, I think I've drafted Robert Woods every single mock draft we've done so far this offseason. He's a... Let me see, top 28 player for me. I have really high expectations for him with Matthew Stafford. I think both him and Cooper Kupp are being way undervalued this season. And, he's a top 10 wide receiver for me.
Okay.
Which I know that's a hot take, but the rushing game work always kind of gets a little overlooked, but it's been there 3 years in a row. I think it'll continue to be there. And I think he's like a 90 catch, 1,100 yard receiver as well.
Oh, I don't think it's a bad pick by any stretch. Again, it comes down to roster build, and just what might be better for your team.
Okay, Robert Woods has been 14th through 18th, somewhere per game, 14th through 18th, 3 straight seasons in PPR. Mm-hmm. So Chris has him top 10, hoping for his best season with Matthew Stafford. But even if he's 14 through 18, this is 37th overall, not a bad pick. Okay, but Dobbins, Jacobs, Etienne, and Montgomery. Those are the 4 running backs that went in round 4. I took Dobbins first. Then Marone took Jacobs. Then Travis Etienne went a couple picks later. And then David Montgomery was last. David Montgomery was last, and he was a top 5 running back last year. He was, I think, number 2 in non-PPR. I think number 1 in PPR in his last 6 games.
Oh, he was a beast. Yeah.
Him or Derrick Henry. Obviously, we know Tariq Cohen is coming back, but he still should not carry. And yeah, that's fair. How would you rank those guys, Jamie? So it was Dobbins, Jacobs, Etienne, Montgomery. That's how they went.
I have it Dobbins, Etienne, Montgomery, Jacobs. So to the way you built your team, I think is fantastic, as long as Davante Adams obviously has Aaron Rodgers. But to go Adams, Tyreek Hill, and then any combination of whatever 2 running backs you're going to take in this range, I think would have been fine. Etienne is the wild card because he could be better than these guys by a lot. And, if he's anything they showed you in college, if he's the type of, air back that he could be, as a pass catcher, as long as he doesn't get ruined by James Robinson and whatever stupid moves they do with Carlos Hyde, he could be an absolute monster. So, I think Etienne, you could say, is better than all these guys. Could have been a round 3 pick, just looking at the start of the group of these backs that we're talking about. But I think Dobbins is, I've said this time and again, he's not going to catch a lot of passes, but he can easily be a top 15 running back based on what the Ravens have done with their lead running back over the last 2 seasons with Lamar Jackson. So he certainly fits that mold. He did it last year, even without catching a lot of passes. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. So he is Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb light in terms of what he does running the ball and what he should be able to do running the ball. So all these guys have the chance to still be good. I just put Jacobs and Montgomery toward the back end of it, looking at the competition that they have and obviously some offensive line concerns for both teams.
Who scores more touchdowns this year, Travis Etienne or Tim Tebow?
If you can place bets now on all the unders for Tim Tebow, that's the right way to go.
You know what? The over is 12.5.
What
yards?
Yards? Is that total yards or receiving yards?
Total yards, yeah. I don't think that's pretty good.
I've seen receiving yards. I haven't seen 12.5 total yards.
He's not going to make the team, is he?
I mean,
he'll make the practice squad.
Yeah, apparently there's not some people are not happy about this.
I will say about Travis Etienne,
drink.
You're gonna have to wait. I think is the key. Like I actually think he could be useful early on as like you're hoping for like a Nyheim Hines type, where he's getting enough targets that he's useful as a PPR back, even though he won't be consistent week to week.
If he's Nyheim Hines, then the Jaguars front office needs to be fired.
Oh, I think
the Jaguars front office, besides drafting Trevor Lawrence, has done a lot of dumb things this offseason, and I'm very skeptical that this Urban Meyer experiment's going to work. It feels very John Gruden to me right now.
Better than Gruden's actually not been that bad. I got to say.
Their drafting has
hold
been
on. Jeff Fisher is like a laughing stock, and John Gruden's been Jeff Fisher so far.
But John Gruden really doesn't have that good of a team. Jeff Fisher. I thought
we're 4 years in, Adam.
I thought Gruden was going to be awful. And they've actually been surprisingly competitive.
Well, they have improved their win total each of the last 3 seasons.
We're 4 years in, and they peaked at. Were they 8-8 last year or 7-9?
They went 4-12, 7-9, 8-8 in 3 seasons.
They're 4 years in. This is his team.
I think it's more on Mayock.
Adam, this is his team.
Every draft they missed.
It's not on Mayock, Adam. You hear things from people in the organization. John Gruden.
Okay.
The scouts come and they put reports on his desk, and he goes, I don't care.
He's bad. He's bad at drafting. They have not drafted well, but he does, I think, a pretty good job with his team. But yeah, I'm a little nervous about Urban Meyer too. All right, I'm sorry. I wanted to hear your thoughts, but I do need to get to a lot of other content. So let's go over the rookies and let's just see where they went and if it was good value. Najee Harris going 33rd overall was obviously great value. The second rookie off the board was Jamar Chase. Let me just get up my list here. And he went. Sorry.
Second rookie overall?
Am I wrong?
No, Etienne went before Chase.
Oh, we were literally just talking about Travis Etienne. Okay, so that was a fine range for Etienne, right? Round 4?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. We covered those two. I have a whole list somewhere in my notes and I can't
find
it.
Round 5 was when Chase and
was
Javonte Williams went off the board. Those are the next 2 rookies.
There we go.
You took Williams. You took him ahead of Gordon. That was obviously something of interest. Why'd you do that?
Right. I took Javonte Williams in round 5. I'm I'm going to be really honest with you. This is going to change. It's going to depend on the reports. It's going to depend on a lot of things. I am just not feeling good about Melvin Gordon right now. And shockingly, Melvin Gordon was on the board 2 full rounds later, and I ended up taking both of them. So I took Javonte Williams late round 5 and Melvin Gordon late round 7. I feel like it's going to take a little while, but I feel like Javonte Williams has the chance to just kind of take over that backfield, at least the rushing portion of it. And I like him better than Melvin Gordon right now, but I'm a little wishy-washy on that. I just don't know how I'm going to end up feeling. It's going to depend on a lot of things. Right now, I've got Williams ahead of Gordon.
It was really surprising how far he fell because, I still would take Gordon over Williams. I certainly understand your sentiment about Williams taking over the job, but he still has to prove it. It just to see him go in round 8 was ridiculous.
Yeah.
When did Mark Ingram go last year? I don't even remember. Yeah.
He was probably like a 5th round.
Probably in a similar spot.
Did he go ahead?
Round 4, round 5.
Right, so he went ahead of Dobbins, right?
Yes.
He went ahead of Dobbins.
End of the draft season, Dobbins was right there with him.
Just remember how good Mark Ingram was in 2019.
Yeah, top 10 running back. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I feel like he will eventually.
But Gordon was 27. Mark Ingram was 29.
Yeah. And Gordon, yeah, I know. I just feel like he'll eventually overtake him. It's an upside play. I'll just say that it's an upside play.
Well, in your favor, get both.
Yeah, that worked. Jamar Chase going in. So it was Deontay Johnson, Kenny Golladay, and Jamar Chase. Does that feel like
Chase went too soon?
Too soon?
Well, he went ahead of Cooper Kupp. That's ridiculous, as Chris just alluded to. Yeah. I would still take Juju Smith-Schuster over him. There are some running backs that you can make a case for that could still go ahead of Jamar Chase, and then you even go to round 6. Like I would take Courtland Sutton over him.
Yeah, that's the one that stands.
Oh no,
out
I'm sorry, I wouldn't take Courtland Sutton over him, but it's in the conversation.
Okay, so then round 6 we did see Devontae Smith, and it was Brandon Ayuk, Sutton, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Chase Claypool. A run on wide receivers, 5 picks in a row. Ayuk, Sutton, Higgins, Devontae Smith, Chase Claypool. Chris, does that feel like where Devontae Smith should go?
Not for me. I have Devontae Smith. I wrote about this in the newsletter on Monday. My expectations for this rookie class are relatively low. I don't think it's nearly as talented of a rookie class as the one we had last year. And I think they're kind of benefiting from how good the one last year was. So no, Devontae Smith, I'm not 100% sure he's going to be the number 1. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 target. If Zach Ertz is still there, he might be the number 3 target. I would assume he's going to be ahead of Jalen Reagor, but I'm not 100% sure on that either. And I'm just not sure it's going to be a great passing game. So
he is going to be so much better than Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, he's the number 1 target.
I hope so.
He's the number 1 receiver. He may not be the number 1 target. Dallas Goedert's going to probably lead the team in targets, which is again.
I'll take Devontae Smith.
That's fine. That's fine. But I think Chris is right that the class is not good, but the high end guys are going to be really good, and they're going to be very comparable to the high end guys from a year ago. Now, Devontae Smith is not going to be Justin Jefferson, but he could certainly be what CeeDee Lamb would have been over 16 games with Dak Prescott. What Brandon Ayuk was in those 6 games that he closed the season when he was healthy. He missed some time over those 6 games, but he was special. I think that's what you look at with Chase and with Smith. Now they have to play to that level, obviously, but this is the right range for him. He should be in the conversation with Higgins and Claypool and Curtis Samuel and Brandon Cooks and the guys that he went around. And you could clearly make cases for and against for all those other guys. I certainly get it. But anytime you have an opportunity to get a player who's going to get maybe 120 plus targets, which I think Devontae Smith has a chance to do, that's not a bad pick. So just again, I'll tie in my own team because I took Sutton. I was looking at it at Higgins, Sutton, Smith, and who's the other one?
Claypool, Ayuk.
No, I wouldn't take. Ayuk was gone. So it was Sutton, Higgins, Smith, and Tyler Boyd, who I have back to back with Higgins. Now, I would have taken Higgins over him, but I was like, who's got the chance to be the best? Who's got the high ceiling of this group? And I still think it's Sutton. And again, it's also playing the what if Aaron Rodgers is their card. So that's why I I took Sutton. But any of these guys, could certainly be prolific pass catchers, and for Sutton and Smith in particular, they should be the number one receivers on their team.
Would you guys take Devontae Smith or Curtis Samuel?
Smith to me.
It's Curtis Samuel for me. I have Devontae Smith as a number 4 wide receiver.
Okay. Next rookie was Kyle Pitts, also in this round, in round 6. So he went around after Hawkinson, and he went before Dallas Goedert. We already talked about that kind of earlier, but you'll see round 6. You'll see round 5. In a draft we did last week, Kyle Pitts went in round 5. So Pitts in round 6, late in round 6, and Goddard. Basically, it was like one round separating Hawkinson, round 5, Pitts, round 6, Goddard, round 7.
And those are going to be the trio of guys, barring Zach Ertz staying in Philadelphia.
In round 7, we had Michael Carter. And let's see who surrounded Michael Carter. Kind of on there was a little bit of a lull in running back. So it was Mostert and then James Conner, and then about 6 picks, and then Michael Carter, Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake. Welcome back, Cotter. Michael Carter, Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake to end round 7. Good, Chris?
Yeah, I think
you took him. I'm sorry. I should probably throw it to you, Jamie. You took Michael Carter in round 7.
Yeah, and again, this is more of an upside play because I already had 3 running backs. So I see the downside in Gordon. I see the downside in Drake. And so, if Carter is the lead running back for the Jets, which I expect him to be, and I like him better in PPR than non-PPR just based on what his size is. So, if he hits, then my running back core is even more enhanced. If he fails, it's not any problem. The only thing that you could say is, did I pass on any wide receivers? T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman were the next 2 guys that went off the board because I didn't have a 3rd receiver at that point. So I ended up with Jalen Waddle. I'm perfectly fine taking Waddle over the 2 Colts guys.
Okay. Next rookie was Jalen Waddle in round 8 and Trey Sermon in round 8. So Jalen Waddle went after T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman. Those were back-to-back picks by Chris and me. Chris took Hilton, I took Pittman. And then it was Jalen Waddle and Jarvis Landry. So, Chris, you did decide to take Hilton over Waddle. I took Pittman over Waddle. Jamie took Waddle. So, how about that? Chris, go ahead. What did you think about this stretch?
Yeah, Waddle is one of the rookies who when I did my projections, he was one of the guys I definitely had to move up because I don't have him projected very high. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I could see a scenario where he has a Henry Ruggs-esque season. I think he'll be better than Henry Ruggs because he was much more productive in college. But that is not a barren receiving core. It's pretty crowded between Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Mike Gesicki. And I think Jalen Waddle might be the most talented of those guys. But that's a receiving core that's got a lot of overlap in terms of skills and places that guys succeed on the field. I think one place Waddle could really thrive is in the short and intermediate area with the other guys working deeper because they're all more deep target kind of guys. But I currently have him 3rd/4th in the receiving hierarchy on Miami, right? In the same range as Mike Gesicki. So I wouldn't take him there, but I totally get the upside. It's entirely possible he's the number 2 receiver for the Dolphins and has a huge year. I still think Will Fuller is going to be number 1, but Waddle could have a really good year as the number 2 guy.
Jamie, you took
he's my favorite Dolphins receiver. I just look at you're already down a game for Will Fuller, and we know what his track record has been. So, factor in the injury risk for what Will Fuller typically does. And it's investment. They decided to take Jalen Waddle 6th overall, knowing that Devontae Smith had a better college career. And Will Fuller's got a 1-year deal, so I think, just the investment in what he will probably be, I think he's going to lead them in targets at the wide receiver spot. And so, if you tell me that Will Fuller in round, what was he, 5, 6?
Mm-hmm.
I know you took him, Chris, was round 6.
First pick of round 6.
First pick around 6, and I can get Jalen Waddle in round 8. I'll do that 10 out of 10.
The one thing I don't see a lot of for Waddle is catches. That's the thing. In PPR, he scares me a little bit. Yeah, I don't.
Well, that's why he goes in this range as opposed to higher.
Yeah, but like Jarvis Landry went right after him.
But we saw what Landry was last year, and it was little scary.
He wasn't good until Beckham got hurt. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the list here. You tell me if there are any great values or any really bad values here. Trey Sermon, round 8. Terrace Marshall, round 9. Rondale Moore, round 10. Kadarius Toney and Rashad Bateman and Amon-Ra St. Brown, all in round 11. Kadarius Toney, Bateman, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, all in round 11. Amari Rogers in round 12. Best pick. Trevor Lawrence, round 13. Chuba Hubbard, round 13. Chris likes taking Chuba Hubbard as a handcuff to McCaffrey. Elijah Moore, round 14. Kenneth Gainwell, round 14. And final round, Trey Lance in round 15 with all the DSTs. Anything stand out there, guys?
Obviously, I took Rondale Moore at the first pick of the 10th, so I really like that one. I think he was so productive. I mean, he only played one full season in college, which is worrisome because of the injuries, but he was so productive as a freshman, not rookie, freshman. Over 1,200 yards, 1,400 yards, I think, total, if you include rushing. He could be such a good fit for what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do, because that offense is so predicated on screens and short passes. And I think Dave mentioned on the draft show, something like 75% of his yards came after the catch in college, which is just nuts. So I think he could be an absolute game-breaking addition for them. And I think if that Cardinals offense takes a big step forward, I think it will be because of the addition of Rondale Moore. So he could be, I think, one of the 3 best rookie wide receivers if he hits.
I was pissed that Amon-Ra St. Brown went 1 picked after me in round 11. I took Darrell Henderson, and I thought that St. Brown might fall.
I think I'd rather have Bateman or St. Brown over Toney as a rookie.
I definitely would. Yep.
And that's another one where it's kind of like Waddle, where I think Waddle's a much more talented player. I think Toney was probably a reach there, but also that's not a great passing game, but it's crowded. I don't know where he's going to settle in terms of targets. I would guess he's not any higher than 3rd behind Barkley and Galladay, but I think he probably could be 5th.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much chance for Kadarius Toney to have any consistency. You know, he could be a best ball type of player, or he has some big weeks, but I just don't see how you're going to trust him in your lineup. You're never going to know when he has good games because he's going to have some big plays. So that's why I wouldn't take him. That's why I like a guy like Amari Rogers. Of course, you know, you need Aaron Rodgers there, but someone where you could see an Amon-Ra St. Brown and even Rashad Bateman. I don't know how consistent Rashad Bateman could be, but Amon-Ra St. Brown and Amari Rogers, it's not hard to see a case where you kind of know what to expect on a week-to-week basis from them. That's why, I personally, I agree with you, Chris. Kadarius Toney ahead of those guys. I don't know how you feel about Amari Rogers, but I wouldn't take him ahead of St. Brown or Bateman. All right, so let's do the Fantasy Cups. Thanks for listening to the draft. You can check it out. I'll put the link in the episode description. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, Ben Schrager put the picks up, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. So it's a good way to follow along. This is from Ben in a city near Titletown, USA. Dave's not on the show, so we will not be guessing. Dear Ron.
Madison.
Sure, not Madison works. Dear Ron, Melvin, James, and Jonathan.
You see why I picked Madison.
Oh, yeah. That's probably those are Wisconsin running backs. You get the player in their drafted round for the first year and in round 1 for any year after that. I am petitioning our league to allow for a waiver wire player to be your 16th round keeper. I may have been fortunate enough to pick up James Robinson last season, but who's counting? They are crying foul, and that teams would ditch their entire rosters.
Are they saying that teams in season, if they're like tanking, would do that?
Probably.
So I have this situation in one of my keeper leagues where what we do is the player is, if he's drafted and dropped and then picked up. So I'm sorry. Well, I guess let me phrase it. You can only keep players that are drafted after round 8 or later, or kept if they're picked up off free agency. If you drop a player that was drafted in the first 7 rounds, he's not keeper eligible if somebody else picks him up.
Okay. Yep. So you get I'm petitioning. So I don't understand. What's their policy on waiver wire players? You get the player and their
So
draft.
I guess right now they can't keep waiver wire picks. They can
Can't
only
keep
drafted
waiver wire
players.
picks.
That doesn't
Yeah,
make
so
sense. You should be able to
that's
keep waiver wire picks. Yeah.
Yeah, you should
now it
be
doesn't
able
have to be round 16, but you can make it like round 10.
Yeah, I usually play last round of the draft, and if you keep multiple, it just pushes guys up. But yeah, you should be allowed to keep waiver wire players. I just do think like Christian McCaffrey last year, if somebody dropped him and somebody else picked him up, that person should obviously not be able to keep Christian McCaffrey for a final round pick, because what that does is it forces the guy who has a guy on injured reserve who they drafted in the first round to keep that player the entire season and waste a bench spot. That's not fair.
There's many. Yeah, you can't do that. So, all right, I think we got it here. Petition your league. You should be able to keep free agents, figure out the proper round, or waiver wire pickups, rather. Figure out the proper round. And thank you very much. Let me tell you that it is Preakness week. So go to sportsline.com. They have the best analysts there. Hammer and Hank Goldberg is giving out his favorite picks. Jody Demling offers his full rankings. G. Menez is going to be on the Early Edge podcast, dishing out his picks and getting you up to speed on how to bet the second leg of the Triple Crown. Sportsline has you covered for everything related to Saturday's Preakness Stakes. We are, let's go faster on the emails, guys. This is from MCOS17. I'm keeping AJ Brown in the 10th and Jalen Hurts in the 16th. It's 10 team and it's PPR. I acquired a number of draft picks through trades last season. What would your draft strategy be with these picks in the first 4 rounds? 1.2, 2.3, 2.8, 2.9, 3.2, 4.3, 4.9. Would it be a stretch to take these are not dynasty picks. These
aren't rookie picks. Yeah.
Would it be a stretch to take Travis Kelce second overall if I can get running backs and wide receivers in the second and third and fourth rounds? McCaffrey, Kamara, Cook, and Henry will likely be kept. So he's got 1.2, 2.3, 2.8, 2.9, 3.2, 4.3, and 4.9. A lot more valuable now that I know that these are not dynasty rookie-only picks.
But the rookies are factored in, so that helps.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you be doing at 1.2? Let's start with that. He's got Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown already.
I think
you got to look to see
Kelce is my number 3 player. So
yeah, Kelce's certainly on the table, without a doubt, especially since you have all those picks in the second round. But it's just a matter of what running backs are available. If you're talking about, he said what, McCaffrey, Cook, and Kamara are gone?
And Henry.
So you're going to go with Saquon Barkley, or you're going to go with Travis Kelce?
Right. Or Jonathan Taylor, if you want to, think that he's going to be available, he's probably a keeper. So, if it starts to get into running back 8, 9, 10, then you clearly go Kelce, but if you're like Chris and you value him as the third best player, then Kelce's certainly the guy you look for. And then you come back in round 2 and see who's available to you. But, you hope that guys like Mixon, maybe Chubb, maybe obviously Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, start to take some swings on those guys. Travis Etienne at the back end of round 2, just knowing that the keepers are gone.
Yeah, I think like if you ended up with Kelce and Harris, which seems pretty reasonable, that would be a pretty awesome start at 1, 2, and then 2, 3.
And see if you can be aggressive and package 2 of those second round picks again in the back end of the first round.
I think we got to grade the trade here from a Toyota is a Toyota. 12-team, 1 quarterback dynasty league. You only start 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. You start 5 flex spots, and it is 0.25 PPR. He has Mahomes and Drew Lock. He traded Justin Herbert and pick 109 for 103, and then he drafted Jamar Chase. So he traded Herbert and 109 for Jamar Chase. Grade the trade, and he has Mahomes.
Herbert and 109 for Jamar Chase. I think he gave up too much.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think it's like a C+, maybe a C.
It's a 1 QB league?
Yeah. So 109 is probably going to be somebody like Terrace Marshall, Mike Carter.
Let's just see based on what our rookie draft was that we did the other day. So 109.
Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman.
Michael Carter. Yeah, it's not going to be Harris. It's not going to be Etienne. It's not going to be Pitts. It's not going to be a top 3 wide receiver. So
yeah, I guess maybe it's not too much. But
yeah, because Carter could be the starter for the Jets. It's also entirely possible that he has 0 value this time next year.
But Marshall Moore could be great.
Yeah, he went off the board in the same range as like Joshua Kelly last year. You know, they were both 3rd round picks, right? Or Carter was 4th.
Oh, in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
Carter was a
4th round pick.
4th round
Yeah,
pick.
so like the
Early.
chances of Michael Carter actually becoming a fantasy asset are 15% historically.
Yeah, it's
Where
not
4th
good.
rounders are. So
Yeah, but if he's considering Chase, he's probably considering receivers. So you're looking at Marshall, Moore, Tony,
Well, he
Bateman.
started 5 flexes, so it's just best available. But I don't know. I mean, Herbert and pick. You know what? The fact that you have Mahomes obviously helps. All right, I think it's fine. The other guys may not agree. I hope that was helpful.
I mean, I guess Chase is
So
going to
does a
help
C
your
plus.
team more, but
Okay. I think it's an A minus. Okay, from Connor, Dynasty Superflex startup. Who would you rather have, Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson?
Murray.
What'd you say, Jamie?
Kyler, Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
Lamar.
This is Dynasty. Not that it really matters. You're taking Lamar.
Yep.
Chris takes Murray. Calvin Ridley or Justin Jefferson?
Jefferson.
Yep.
Cam Akers or Nick Chubb?
Chubb.
Akers.
That's the hardest one, I think.
Yeah, because like Ridley versus Jefferson, I think Ridley's probably better, but he's 4 years older than Justin Jefferson.
I don't think
Ridley,
Ridley's better, but I think they're both great.
they're ranked in the same range, but yeah, he's 26. He turns 27 this year. I
Right.
think Ridley is
Oh, you're right.
definitely older than you think.
Chubb is kind of old too.
He's 5 years. He's 5 years older than Justin Jefferson.
How much older is Chubb than Akers?
I don't know.
Chubb is 25, turns 26 in December. Akers is 21, turns 22 in June. So yeah, 3.5 years older.
Oh man, that's a huge deal. I still feel like I'd take Chubb. You said Akers, Chris, and
Actually 4.5 years older. Yeah.
oh man, I might have to go Akers.
Yeah, I would go Akers.
I just think Chubb is I don't know what Akers will become, but right now Chubb, I think it's easy to say he's a better player.
It's also a situation. You know, I mean, Chubb could price himself out of Cleveland and then you don't know where he ends up, whereas Akers has at least 2 more years with the Rams. And
Who did you take, Jamie?
I took Chubb. I just think, you know, in this case, bird in hand almost. You know what Chubb is. Don't know what Akers could become. I love Akers. I think he's got a world of talent, but you go back to Emory. What did Emory Hunt say? He thinks Henderson's better, you know, so.
I really want to see what happens with Akers in the passing game. There was like 1-2 game stretch where he got like 9 targets. And if he was used that way, I think that would be super good for his value. But I'm waffling on him for this year just because I don't know what the passing game role is going to be. And that's also why I'm a little lower on Nick Chubb, because I do know what the passing game role is going to be. And it's going to be not much.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns' offensive line could be the best in the NFL. The running game is fantastic. The coaching staff for the run game is fantastic. It's hard to overlook what Nick Chubb is, and he's still very young and, just oozing with upside still.
This is our last email. Sorry to Dave and Flint and Reed. I'm not going to be able to read your emails today. This is from the banker from a town in Iowa. What do you think about a contending team renting a player for a rebuilding team for just 1 year? I have identified TJ Hawkinson as a good strategy. So he wants to get Hawkinson for 1 year and then give him back.
Give him back to who?
To the guy who
like he's
other team.
That's collusion.
Yeah,
this is the literal definition of collusion.
It's a no.
Well, I mean, look, if he can do it,
right? Like you could trade for him and then trade him back, and that would be. But like, just literally, I will take him for 1 year.
But the problem with a player like this is
it's a trade. He's going to give something up.
It's got to be a fair trade going both ways.
Right. The problem is that he's buying him before he potentially breaks out, and so the value going back the other way at the end of this is probably not going to be what you're expecting or hoping to get, because you're going to have to give up more. And then the other side of it is if he flops, which he could, then, what are you getting back in return?
It's kind of interesting concept. We get this question a lot, but it's usually in season. It's usually, I made a trade and I agreed to give this player back after another week. I needed someone for my bye week, so I traded for this guy and I agreed to trade him back, reverse the trade a week later. And I always say no. That's obvious collusion. Well, but if the other team is benefiting from it, then you could make the case that, hey, it's fine. Both teams fill the need for 1 week and then they retrade it. I think it's kind of shady, but I don't know. I mean, there's something to this where
1 week versus 1 year, though. It's
right. I don't know what's better. So you take Hawkinson and you give up, let's say you give up, Jarvis Landry this year for TJ Hawkinson or something, or Tyler Boyd for TJ Hawkinson. I don't know. And then you're gambling big time on what their values are going to be. It's almost like option trading or something like that.
Well, yeah, like if I will trade you, we will make this trade and then we will discuss a trade going back the other way, then okay. But if it's literally just what you give me, I will give you back next year, that is obviously collusion.
Yeah, right. So if it's, I'm going to give you a second round rookie only pick for TJ Hawkinson now, let's say 203. And then if he breaks out, I'm definitely giving him back to you, but you got to give me 103. That's.
Yeah.
No, so I don't know. A collusion to me is when two teams work together for the benefit of one team. That's not necessarily what this is.
Well, sure it is.
No.
Yeah, it's for the benefit of one team this year.
Yeah, all right. So you're telling me that if you're in a dynasty league and you see these Team A and Team B have agreed to trade these two players and then exchange them in 2022, you're like, no, that can't happen.
But if let's just say that the team with Hawkinson has the third pick in the rookie draft, right? And they're committed to taking Kyle Pitts. So they have no need for TJ Hawkinson, right?
Yep.
And they trade Hawkinson for 1.12 because the manager with 112 doesn't have a tight end. So they get Hawkinson at 112. And then next year, that manager that got the draft pick and gave up Hawkinson has acquired other draft picks because they're rebuilding, comes back next year and has a team that's ready to compete. But Pitts didn't work out, or it's a chance you could start both tight ends as a flex. So now you're trading Hawkinson back, but Hawkinson blew up because they had the agreement in place that no matter what happens, you're giving me Hawkinson back.
Mm-hmm.
So now that owner has to give up what?
So you say, okay, if TJ Hawkinson reaches these benchmarks, then you have to give me an additional first round pick.
Factoring incentives.
So it's a conditional trade.
This is cool. I think you could.
Just make trades. Like this is where it becomes collusion. It's just like if you're making a trade, it shouldn't be contingent on something else. Like that's where it becomes collusion. It's two teams agreeing we will do this when it benefits you, and then do this thing again. Like it's
no.
If you want to make a fair trade,
if you want to
make a fair trade, it doesn't really matter if it benefits both teams. It's still collusion. Like it's still two teams.
Wait, hold on.
Coming together to make an agreement.
Let me throw this at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take Hawkinson for pick 112. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I give you Hawkinson. You give me pick 112. Next year, I'm getting Hawkinson back. But if TJ Hawkinson reaches certain benchmarks or finishes, with an X amount of fantasy points, I get Hawkinson back, but you get another pick, like another first round pick. If he doesn't reach those benchmarks, then you give me something, a second round picker. So now you're trying to gamble on how you feel Hawkinson's going to do this year, and you're trying to make. I think this has legs.
I just think about it from the perspective of a commissioner. What if one of those guys just doesn't agree?
Is getting back Hawkinson plus something if he fails?
Yes.
And the person that's getting Hawkinson is either giving Hawkinson back for nothing, just a straight up draft pick?
I don't know. I confused myself in the.
So just think about it from the perspective of the commissioner. What if the guy who's trading Hawkinson, what if Hawkinson has 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, becomes the next Travis Kelce? And we come back next year and he's like, I'm not going to make that trade. Two guys still got to hit the same button.
It's got to be
if it goes the other way?
Make it public.
Chris, it's in writing. It's agreed.
Make it in writing, and it's exactly right.
Yeah, I would not allow this as commissioner.
He has a huge season. Then you get him back, and you don't get any extra compensation. If he has a bad season, then you get him back, and you do get extra compensation. I don't know. You know what? Let's take the weekend to think about it.
Just don't do it. Just don't allow it.
That'll work too. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to Jamie. Happy birthday to Ben. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week on Fantasy Football Today.